Welcome back to the Artefactors Union. I am your host and foreman, Douglas Scoundrels. Today we are assembling the Shenlong Core box. This is the second edition version of the box, but it's the exact same models, just from a different edition. But literally just the same. We've got 7 models this time around. One Shenlong here. A couple of totems, the aspiring students, I think they are now called. The name's different on this box. Sensei Yu, the gentleman laughing here, and 3 High River monks, which in second edition were monks of the High River, so a name change, I guess. That's our artwork. Here's one of the aspiring students. But here's our back. Shenlong, Render, Sensei Yu, they were called peasants back then, but now they're aspiring students, and our High River monks. Let's look at the sprue. This is looking to be a fairly simple box. Hooray! I don't have to spend a whole ton of time on this, hopefully. Shenlong, Sensei Yu, the 2 aspiring students, and the High River monks. Alright, let's look at our instructions and then get started on Shenlong. Shenlong is going to be fairly simple. We'll grab his body and then add another crotch flap. I think that's probably part of his belt, but it's a flap that goes over the crotch. After that, we'll do his left arm and his head, and that's it. That's really it. So let's grab that body. Okay, here's the body. First up is that flap, belt, sash thing that's going to go right there. Okay. Went in just fine. No issues. Next is going to be our left arm. I'm just going to go right in there. This one was a little bit more difficult just because it glues to the side of his torso as well, and it's not a locked in sort of connection, so you gotta hold it for a little bit so it stays in place. Okay, let's do his head now. Okay, 4-piece Shenlong is done. Looks great. Put him on a base. Shenlong is done. The hardest part for assembling him was the left arm, but not by much. The whole thing was really simple. I think we're going to continue with that theme. Let's move on to the totems. Okay, our aspiring students, we'll go ahead and do them as they're numbered, so we'll do number 1 first. His order of assembly is going to be, I think we can glue both of his legs against his body first. So this will be the one that he's sort of stepping forward with, and then the one towards the back. So this leg will go up here, this leg will go here, and then we'll enclose them with the skirt. And then we'll add both arms and the broom. They'll attach all at the same time because I want to get that sort of this connection point in there before we put the flap on the back on. And then once that's in, we'll do the head and he'll be done. So we will start with these 3 pieces. Okay, our body, our front leg, our right leg is going to go right in there. It's going to sit kind of awkwardly, but we're going to reference its connection or the seam right along here to make sure that it's in the right spot. It really is sitting awkwardly. You can kind of see with the notch it's supposed to fit into, and then we're looking right here, and that looks good. It'll probably be mushed around just a little bit when we put the skirt on, but it's good enough for now. Let's do the other leg, which is going to fit right in here. Okay. Reference the render to determine how the foot is supposed to point. I recommend tweezers again because it was sitting sort of awkwardly, but just squeezing it like this ended up putting it right exactly where it's supposed to be. So let's do the skirt now. Okay, that with a little bit of force just popped right into place. Nudged the legs maybe a little bit, unsure. Again, it just went pop and it fit perfectly. That looks great. Seams are really small. So we'll move on to the arms and the broom. One will obviously connect here, and the other one has a big tooth that should go right in here. Okay, how this worked is that I first hooked it around so that the connection point was sitting more or less in here. Then I glued the elbow and made sure that sit fairly correctly. I made sure it was in the correct spot. And once that was relatively cured, I went and then I actually glued this in, nudging it into place. And it looks great. So we're going to go ahead and do the cloth flap back here. Quick look from the front. I'm sorry. Alright, now let's do the cloth. Okay, fit on. Not a problem. Yep, our seams look good. Okay, let's get the head. It's all done. First aspiring student. Let's get him on base. Our first aspiring student is done. We're going to call him Johnny. Hardest part was getting the arms aligned with the upper arms on the torso. Just took a little bit of waiting and holding things in place for the glue to settle, and then nudging to get the desired result. Harder than Shenlong, though. Still pretty easy. Let's move on. Our second of the aspiring students is going to be a bit simpler. We'll take the back half of the body, add the legs to it, enclose the whole thing with the front half of the body, add the arms and the broom, and then the head. Here is our back half. Now let's just add the legs, down here. Alright, legs are in. Nothing to really say about the connection. Let's get the front half of the body on here. Here's the full body now. Checking our seams. We're good. Alright, now our arms and the broom connecting where arms normally connect to the normal arms. Okay, start with the right arm getting it to fit into that shoulder and look good, and then maneuver the left hand to go inside where it's supposed to attach to the sleeve and arm. Alright, head time. Head was kind of slidey, but that just took a little bit of fiddling. Looks pretty good now. Let's get him on a base. Aspiring student number 2 is done. We're going to call him Daniel. The hardest part for this one was, again, the arms. Just because you have 2 connection points that are situated pretty far apart from each other means nudging them into place is just going to be a little bit of a task. Overall, still a really simple model, like everything else. Let's move on to almost no point in doing this model. Sensei Yu, one of the easiest models to assemble in the game. We've got a body and 2 feet. The most difficult part about this is that this is not his left foot, despite this being his left leg. So you got to cross them over. That's about it. So let's get him out. A1 Sensei Yu, and I guess we'll just do his right foot, and then his left foot. Okay, just ever so slightly pointed outwards, and he's done. Base time. Sensei Yu, he's got feet. Our High River monks, maybe slightly more complicated than the other models, but like by an extra bit or so. There's still relatively few pieces to them, so I think we'll have about as leisurely as a time as we did with the first half of this box. Let's look at the instructions and then get started on our first one. High River Monk number 1 is our only one wielding a weapon. We'll start with the body and then add the left leg. Once we're done with that, we'll add the hands and the pole arm, do the cape on his back, and then his head. Pretty simple. Okay, here's the body. Now the leg going right in there. Okay, it'll connect as I pointed there, and also ever so slightly connect to the right leg right there. Okay, do the polearm now on the hands. Obviously the polearm, the poke hand's going to be going this way. All right, those are 2 relatively small connection points, so you're probably going to need to hold them in place for a little bit, just to make sure they cure before you let them go. Let's do the cape next. I'm covering up this big hole back here. If I can get my camera to focus. Alright, yeah. Okay, make sure the flap is going underneath the polearm. Don't try to set it on top. You might knock the bit out of place. Right, okay. Now add the head. Our first High River Monk is complete. Let's put him on a base. Our first High River Monk is done. We're going to call him Bruce. And the hardest part, well, for assembly was, yeah, the arms, the hands and the pole arm. Same with the aspiring students, just having to connect to 2 points that are spaced so far apart is just a little awkward. Simple otherwise. Let's keep going. Our second High River Monk is labeled as number 3 in the instructions, but it's number 2 on the sprue, so we'll go and do him. This is a body plus 2 legs combined together and stacking the body on top, then the left arm, the cape, and the head. Let's assemble in that order. Okay, we're going to start with the body, turn it around, and immediately slap our right leg on. Okay, that's what it's going to look like. Let's grab a view from the front real quick. And now, let's add the left leg. Okay, both legs are in. Looks good from the front and back. Now let's add the left arm right there. Okay, now that he is armed, let's turn him around again and do the cape, which is going to cover up his entire back. Alright, another easy connection. Now let's jam his head on top. His peg on the neck lets it slot easily into that hole. Another easy assembly, and he's done. Base time. High River Monk number 2 is done. We're going to call this one Jet. The hardest part was the legs. Getting them to connect to the torso and to each other was... Really, I'm reaching for a difficulty thing here, so it was just the slightest bit awkward compared to everything else. Let's wrap this up, shall we? Third and last High River Monk. Take the body and add the leg, followed by the right hand, which is what he's actually sitting on, the left hand, the cape, and then the head. Okay, first bit is the left leg. Going to be connecting all throughout here, and it's going to be kicking up. I almost want to say over his head, but he's going to be sitting like this on the base. So, okay, that's genuinely how it's supposed to look. View from the back to see our seams. All is looking well. Let's do his right hand, which is the open one that's holding his body up. Okay. Looks just fine. Let's do the left arm. Okay. It's bent at the elbow. I actually put it in initially pointing straight up, but that's not how it's supposed to sit in there. Okay. Now let's add the flowy cape. It covers up the entire lower back. But there's also another thing that will help support the model on the base. It's not just the hand that's going to be glued down. Okay, let's give him a head and call it good. This man is breakdancing. Alright, put him on a base. The third High River Monk is done. We're going to call him Jackie. As far as the hardest part, the left arm, because I accidentally attached it wrong and had it pointing straight out. That's really it. Pretty easy like the rest of this box. Let's look at the whole thing now. The Shenlong Core box is done, containing a Shenlong, 2 aspiring students, Sensei Yu, and 3 High River Monks. A very easy build, folks. I would probably recommend this as one of the best boxes to start the game with if you're new to hobbying, on account of how simple it is. Not in regards to power level, though. That seems pretty strong from what I've heard. Anyways, yeah, that's really it. Nothing else to talk about. So let's the thing spin for a little bit and look at the pretty models. I have been your foreman, Douglas Scoundrels, helping you build better Malifaux.